Hello everyone, and welcome to the Respiratory System Lab. This lab will have an anatomy and physiology portion. I'm actually going to start in a little bit reverse order with physiology first. Everything you need to know about the physiology is going to be right here on this Canvas screen. So the big two things are going to be able to identify inspiratory reserve volume, expiratory reserve volume, tidal volume, vital capacity, and total lung capacity. And that's via definitions, not any kind of graph or anything like that, and to calculate vital capacity. So for this section, you will simply have a definition like this is the amount of air inhaled above tidal volume during a forceful breath in. And then you would type in the answer being inspiratory reserve volume, for example. Tidal volume, this is the amount of air you typically breathe into your lungs when at rest and not exerting yourself. That would be your tidal volume. You don't have to memorize the average vital capacity in males versus females or the total lung capacity in males versus females. That's just there for your information, but you do need to know these definitions. As far as calculating vital capacity, this is the formula. You would take your tidal volume, the normal amount you breathe in and out in a breath. You'd add to it the inspiratory reserve volume, the extra air inhaled above that tidal volume, as well as add to it the expiratory reserve volume, that's the amount of air exhaled, I guess below tidal volume, and then add all those three together to get your vital capacity. So questions may be very simple, either very simple math questions, and I'll have a calculator available for you to use if I do use math questions or have to have it as a math problem, but it may simply be as giving me this formula, okay? So that's the physiology portion. If you had been in an in-person lab, we would have had an actual spirometer, and you would have been able to actually record your own inspiratory reserve, expiratory reserve, and tidal volume. But since it's an online class, we're just doing this concept-based. Now, as far as the anatomy portion goes, there's going to be four objectives. The first two are the visual identification part. The first is the large macroscopic organs and structures in the respiratory system. The second is the microscopic ones. And then, as always, there's key terms and prefixes and suffixes. This first link will take you to the microscopic images, key terms, prefix, and suffixes. There are two other links that will take you to images of the models. So let me click on this one first for you. And that will take you to your lab manual. And if you scroll down, there's an introductory paragraph giving you some explanation as well as definitions. Here's your respirometer. That would be the piece of equipment that you would measure lung volumes and capacities. There are a few more objectives here simply because, again, if you were an in-person lab, you'd be using a spirometer to actually measure these lung volumes. But again, we don't have that. Here are your prefixes and suffixes, well, I guess prefixes in this case, as well as key terms, so not too many key terms for this chapter, so yay that. And they're fairly, I think, easy to remember ones. These charts are the list of structures you would need to know. If you happen to be on campus and want to take a look at a model, this would be your key to those. I'm actually going to scroll quickly through here to get to the microscopic part. So just scroll, and then here we are at the anatomy part. We have two anatomy or microscopic anatomy slides. The first is of the trachea. The second is of the lung. Again, there's going to be some paragraph information for you to read through to get a better understanding. The one of the trachea may look familiar to some of you if you took Bio 201. It is our pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium slide. And the way we have this information organized is there's a lumen. That's that hole in the middle of a tube, right? The space in the middle of a tube is simply the lumen. So this is where air would be located. And then the tunica mucosa, the tunica submucosa, and then the tunica adventitia are the three main layers. And then we have information about what you can find in each of those, as well as what would be located in the hyaline cartilage. So these structures here are in the tunica mucosa. The tracheal glands are in the tunica submucosa. These things are in the hyaline cartilage, and then there's just the tunica adventitia by itself. And again, scrolling down, you'll see an image with all of these things labeled. And then you'll see things in parentheses like tissue for pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. So on a practical, the question might be pointing to this, and the question would ask you, what is this tissue? You know that this is what it's asking for. Versus it might be pointing to this and ask you for a layer. Now, the layer would be the mucosa or the tunica mucosa. Either term is okay. Okay, so again, these parentheses are there to help you understand like how that question might be asked. For tracheal glands and perichondrium, it might be like, what is the structure? But with tissue and layer, because sometimes it's hard to know, like, well, what are you pointing to? Are you asking about the tissue or are you asking about the layer? So again, make sure you're reading those questions on one of the quizzes. And then we have a zoomed in image at 10, using the 10x or at 100 time magnification. So you can see more clearly some of these structures. And then we zoom in one more time to get a really close look. You'll notice here's that pseudostratified ciliate columnar epithelium on the outside, lamina propria, which is sort of filler connective tissue underneath. And we've tried using brackets to give you a better idea, like all of this is the mucosa layer, this is the submucosa layer. Here's that perichondrium running this way. Chondroblasts, if you remember back, these are the cells that are building the cartilage. They're always found on the periphery or close to the perichondrium. As we get into sort of away from that edge toward the middle, those are now chondrocytes. They are not actively building cartilage but maintaining it. So the cell is the chondrocyte. This little space or bubble that they are living in is called the lacuna. So that's the space that the cells are in. Okay, I don't know if you guys know, like if you've seen one of those like gumball machines, you know, where you put the quarter in around 50 cents, or I don't know what they cost anymore these days, and you turn the knob and you get like that little plastic ball and there's a toy inside. Think of like that plastic ball as the lacuna, and then like the little toy inside is the chondrocyte, or even the chondroblast. Chondroblasts are in lacuna as well. So that it's kind of like that relationship. And then as far as the lung goes, we have an alveolus. It's made up of simple squamous epithelium. There's an alveolar duct, also made of simple squamous epithelium. And then there's capillaries, also made up of simple squamous epithelium. So if you see one of these slides and we're asking you for the tissue type, that answer is going to be very easy. As far as alveoli go, these are more these circular structures. The duct, you'll see sort of like a pathway right here. So that's how you know it's a duct versus just an alveolus. So here's an alveolus, and then see how tiny this is, this little circle here? So that's a capillary. So you can see the size difference between the two. You're seeing like all of these, like this size, alveolus. Little circle, capillary. Kind of like a passageway here, alveolar duct. Okay. And then if I go back to here and click on either one of these two links, it will take you to slightly different labeled images of the models. So let me just go to the first one for you first. That's going to take you to this page, and as you can see, you'll have even more labeled images of the microscopic anatomy, which I think will be helpful for you. And then as you scroll down, you'll get they're a little bit busy, so I'm sorry about that. I can sometimes be overwhelming with so many arrows. But these images of the sagittal section, as well as respiratory plaque images, as well as the trachea, well, I guess the larynx, I should say, and then the bronchial tree with the trachea and the bronchi and so on and so forth, as well as the lungs. And then some different models, maybe showing you exactly the same thing, just on a slightly different model. The other link will take you to this page, which is basically our Google Drive. So if you click on any of these, let me see if I can adjust this a little bit better. But again, they're labeled images. They're going to tell you the exact same thing. It might be just slightly different. Maybe they're a little bit more helpful. You like these a little bit better. But otherwise, you'll see, again, they're labeled images of the different organs. This is that same larynx model that I showed you earlier. let's see, here's the posterior portion of it. And then again, you can kind of see, we just have as many pictures as we possibly could get to you so that you feel comfortable in identifying these different structures. Okay, if you have any questions about this lab or what you need to know for it, please let me know.